At the outset, I would like to offer my humble pranams to our beloved Swami. Loving Sai Ram and greetings from Prashanthi Nilayam. Last time, I came up to the point where Hanuman, brought as a captive to Ravana's court, delivers a tough message from Rama. That message infuriates Ravana. That plus the enormous damage inflicted by Hanuman in the Ashokavana makes Ravana so angry that he orders Hanuman be put to death. Ravana's youngest brother Vibhishana, who was in the court, heard this and thought deeply about what Ravana had just said. Knowing his brother as he did, Vibhishana understood why Ravana was in such a foul mood. Nevertheless, wanting to shield his elder brother from the dire consequences of adharma, he boldly decided to take the risk of making yet another attempt to dissuade Ravana from unnecessarily committing a grievous sin. So, once again, Vibhishana said in a most respectful voice, "Dear brother, please try to understand that I do not in the least mean any disrespect whatsoever to you. On the contrary, what I am trying to tell you is in your own interest. Yes, this monkey is a formidable adversary that has caused enormous harm and damage to our interests. However, no matter how justified we might feel, we must at the same time be careful to follow the dictates of the scriptures. That is particularly important in your case because you have mastered the scriptures and can clearly distinguish the difference between right and wrong. Indeed, few can match you in discussing virtue. The wise know that killing a messenger, no matter what the provocation, is simply not allowed. It is forbidden. Period. However, there is nothing to prevent you from avoiding any other form of punishment." Vibhishana continued, "I should not forget to mention that you are always looking for adversaries to conquer so that your glory becomes better known. Suppose this monkey is killed. How would those who sent him know anything about you? From that angle also, it is practical to spare the life of this creature, restricting disapproval of his conduct with maybe some severe punishment." For a moment, Ravana did not allow his anger to totally overwhelm him. Instead, he remained silent when Vibhishana spoke, absorbing the various points made by his younger brother. It seemed that after all, Vibhishana had a point. Changing his mind, Ravana then ordered, "Our brother has spoken wisely and well. As suggested by him, I now order that instead of killing this vicious monkey, you shall instead set his tail on fire and parade him on all the streets of Lanka. After that, he can be set free and allowed to return to where he came from." The Rakshasas, who were eagerly looking forward to slowly butchering the enemy, were utterly disappointed. However, orders were orders, especially when they came from Ravana himself. So, they now decided to make up for their disappointment by wrapping the tail of the monkey prisoner with plenty of cloth prior to setting it on fire. Even as they set the tail ablaze, Hanuman took everyone by surprise by suddenly expanding his size to enormous proportions. Full of anger and indignation, he now began to strike the augurs close to him with his blazing tail. He could, of course, have easily freed himself. However, for reasons of his own, Hanuman allowed his captors to parade him all over, even as the locals jeered and hurled insults, applauding at the same time the Rakshasas, who were dragging him through the streets of Lanka to the accompaniment of drum beats and the blowing of conches. Hanuman's reason for suffering punishment and humiliation was simple. By being dragged all over town, he could get a fairly good idea of Lanka's layout, information that could come in very handy later. Meanwhile, news of these developments was relayed to Sita by some of the Rakshasis keeping a watch over her. When Sita heard that Hanuman's tail had been set on fire, she silently prayed to Agni, the god of fire, to be kind to this loyal servant of Rama and save him from feeling any burning sensation or suffer damage to the tail and body. Agni heard Sita's prayer, and instantly Hanuman noticed that all of a sudden he no longer felt any burning sensation in his tail. On the contrary, it was feeling unusually cool. It did not take him long to figure out that this must be the direct result of appeals made by Sita to Agni, a personal friend of his father Vayu. After a while, Hanuman felt that parading him as a prisoner had gone long enough. Breaking free, he promptly increased his size to still greater proportions. Thereafter, letting out a mighty roar, Hanuman took a giant leap and landed on the top of the city gate, which was as high as a small hill. Surveying Lanka from that vantage point, Hanuman decided that having laid waste almost the whole of Ashokavana and killed many Rakshasas, including several prominent ones, the only thing left for him to do before flying back was to wreck the city as a whole. And this he began to do systematically by using his burning tail. Jumping from building to building and setting them on fire one after another, Hanuman soon had the whole city ablaze. The fire not only caused extensive damage but also created widespread panic. It was truly an awesome sight that delighted the celestial denizens no end. For them, this was clearly the shape of things to come, with the Lord in human form, finally destroying that fearful demon who had been such a terror to them for so long. Having created unprecedented havoc, Hanuman took a short break and looked with much satisfaction at a once glorious and most prosperous Lanka, now being quickly reduced to ashes. Even as he was congratulating himself, he suddenly froze when it struck him that this very fire that was hurting the enemy could also consume Sita in the process. Glee turned to shock in an instant, and driven to despair, Hanuman began to curse himself for haste and thoughtlessness. However, soon a comforting thought came to him, and he reflected, "Fire always burns. Yet my tail, which is on fire, is not consuming me. Why? What else could be the reason except Rama's grace? If Rama's grace could protect me, surely it would protect Sita also." Even as this thought was crossing his mind, Hanuman heard the heavenly bards Charanas singing how, while a furious fire was burning down the whole of Lanka, the same fire was leaving Sita and Ashokavana untouched. That song not only restored Hanuman's confidence, but also signaled to him the need to return quickly and report back to Rama. At the same time, Hanuman also felt that it might be worthwhile to see Sita just one more time, to personally make sure that she was indeed safe and unharmed by the monstrous fire he had created. So, back to Ashokavana Hanuman went. Seeing Sita was safe, he heaved a huge sigh of relief and promptly conveyed to Sita his happiness. Deeply moved, Sita pleaded once more with Hanuman to rest for a day before starting on his return journey. Profusely thanking Sita for her enormous concern, kindness and compassion, Hanuman insisted on returning immediately, since reporting back was long overdue. The sooner he returned, Hanuman pointed out, the sooner Rama would land in Lanka and rescue her. Conceding Hanuman's point without any further argument, Sita then bade him farewell. Taking leave of Sita, Hanuman quickly made his way to Mount Arishta, which he decided would be the launch pad for the return jump. Feeling exhilarated by the success of his mission, he now looked forward to the return journey and reporting to Rama as early as possible. Climbing to the mountain top, Hanuman stood there for a moment and gazed at the vast ocean stretching out in front of him, deep and full of dangerous marine creatures of various types. He then increased his size to the precise proportion needed for flying across, after which he pressed hard with his limbs to generate the thrust required. The lift-off was perfect, and instantly Hanuman soared into the sky and sped fast, leaving behind a summit that had been pushed down almost to the bowels of the earth. Charged with energy that came from the thrill of a successfully completed mission and the prospect of reporting back soon to Rama, Hanuman flew across the sky like a powerful arrow. Soon, the majestic Mount Mahendra came into view, indicating that home was close. Roaring loudly and sending a signal to his waiting friends on shore that he would shortly be with them, Hanuman prepared for the descent. Hearing the cry of victory, Jambavan said excitedly to those around him, "Look, Hanuman is coming back. From the nature of the roar, it is abundantly clear that he has succeeded. Otherwise, we would not have heard such a triumphant cry." Within a minute, Hanuman descended on top of the Mount Mahendra and was instantly surrounded by a huge crowd of Vanaras. Brushing them aside, Hanuman saluted the elders and the team leader Prince Angada, after which he announced in a few crisp words that Sita had been found. As everyone loudly cheered, Hanuman quietly selected a lovely spot to sit down so that he could narrate in leisure the entire story of his amazing expedition. Sensing the consuming curiosity of his listeners, he gave a quick synopsis, following which Prince Angada lavished compliments on Hanuman. By now, everyone was comfortably seated, with the elders choosing nice big rocks to squat on, even as Hanuman got ready to play the role of a dramatic storyteller. The detailed narration began with Jambavan asking, "Hanuman, tell us how exactly you discovered Sita and also how Ravana is treating her right now." Hanuman then began describing in full detail all that happened, starting from the moment of his sensational leap towards Lanka. Understandably, his narration was frequently interrupted with loud applause and wild cheering. Hanuman finally concluded, "That is the way it all happened, and if I have been successful in doing what our King Sugriva sent us out to do, it is entirely due to the grace of Rama. Let us remember that all this represents just the beginning. Sita is still a captive and suffering indescribable pain. The real hard work lies ahead, and that task has to be accomplished by all of us working closely together under our King Sugriva for the glory of Rama." Responding to Hanuman, Angada said, "We congratulate Hanuman for his heroic and spectacular achievement. It was mentioned that we must now go back and report that Sita has been found. In this context, I have an alternative suggestion. There are many amongst us here who are extraordinarily mighty, powerful, and quite capable of taking care of Ravana, as also his entire army, either in small groups or even single-handed. That being the case, I wonder whether we should merely go back and report that Sita has been found but not rescued. Why don't we take instead the next logical step That is, rescue Sita and report total victory as well as success. Hanuman has clearly demonstrated what he could achieve all by himself. That being the case, why don't we make a collective assault on Lanka, recover Sita and restore her to Rama? Angada being the prince regent, none dared to offer any comment, with the sole exception of Jambavan, who had the requisite seniority, age and wisdom. Gently objecting to Angada, Jambavan said, "O Prince, I am afraid your suggestion is not appropriate. Recall that our instructions were merely to search for and find Sita in the southern sector. Nothing whatsoever was said about our bringing Sita back. Moreover, we should not forget that Rama took a vow in the presence of the entire Vanara army that he would win back Sita. That being the case, we should not do anything that would come in the way of Rama fulfilling his vow. I think the best course of action for us would be to return to Kishkinda as quickly as possible and report the good news that Sita has been found. Having made my submission, we Vanaras await your instructions about our next move." Jambavan presented his argument with such skill that there was not even a murmur of dissent. Everyone was in total agreement, including Angada, and promptly the Vanara group started moving in the general direction of Kishkinda, jumping and dancing as they went along. Soon they spotted a large and well-maintained grove, so beautiful that it appeared to rival the famous Nandanavanam in heaven. Getting closer to the grove Madhuvana by name, the Vanaras found it was well protected with a strong fence and was under the charge of a Vanara named Dadimukha, an uncle of Sugriva. For the Vanaras, the fence was hardly an impediment, and very quickly all of them were inside the Madhuvana. Finding that the grove had not only plenty of delicious fruits of various kinds but also a number of beehives loaded with honey, the Vanaras sought Angada's permission to help themselves. Angada looked at Jambavan, who indicated his approval with a gentle nod. Thereupon Angada told the Vanaras to go ahead and eat all the fruits they could and drink as much honey as they wanted. That was the signal the Vanaras were waiting for, and without wasting a moment, they began to indulge themselves with great exuberance. Exhibiting typical simian behavior, they not only emptied the trees of all the fruits they bore, but also drank all the honey they could. Becoming thoroughly intoxicated in the process, they then began to sing and dance wildly and tore down trees, scattering them all over the place. Naturally, such rowdy behavior outraged Dadimukha, who did his best to stop the rampage. At first he scolded the Vanaras, after which he tried to physically obstruct them. Ignoring his age and his special relationship with Sugriva, the highly inebriated Vanaras not only resisted Dadimukha, but also attacked him, violently scratching and slapping and kicking the poor caretaker. Curiously, while all this wrecking of the beautifully groomed Madhuvana was going on, Hanuman, ever the stickler for dharma, actually supported the Vanaras on the rampage and even encouraged them, saying, "Go ahead and help yourself to all that you can eat and drink. If you are obstructed and attacked, I am here to help as well as protect you." Angada also lent support, even though he did not quite seem to agree with Hanuman. With approval from such high quarters, the Vanaras became all the more enthusiastic in seeking innovative outlets for their unbridled exuberance. The guards who assisted Dadimukha fled in panic, totally unable to control the drunken monkeys. Dadimukha then personally clashed with Hanuman and Angada, who inflicted severe injuries on his granduncle. Unable to take any further punishment, Dadimukha dragged himself to where his subordinates were and said to them, "This is just too much, and this atrocity must be forthwith reported to our master Sugriva. I am sure Sugriva would severely punish these miscreants." The guardians of Madhuvana, including Dadimukha, then immediately left for Kishkinda. And once in Sugriva's presence, Dadimukha, despite being heavily injured and somewhat incapacitated, did not omit to first offer his obeisance to Sugriva before saying anything. Sugriva was surprised by the sudden appearance of his uncle in his court, and that too in such a battered shape. Anxiously he asked, "Uncle, why are you prostrating before me? Please arise, and without any fear whatsoever, tell me what brought you here." Feeling somewhat comforted, Dadimukha slowly picked himself up and said in a rather pained tone, "O king, the beautiful Madhuvana you placed in my charge has thus far never been disturbed. I have taken care of it for various kings of Kishkinda and always protected it very well. But unfortunately, and most strangely, your own subordinates, coming in huge numbers, entered the protected premises, totally overpowering us despite the vigorous resistance offered by me and the other guards. And having gained entry, the Vanaras then went on a rampage, eating all the fruits available, after which they began to drink without any inhibition all the honey they could find. Soon they became highly intoxicated and thereafter utterly uncontrollable. Going on a wild rampage, they began tearing up trees as well as bushes and then throwing them everywhere. I did everything I could to stop them, but failed miserably, ending up finally with severe injuries. Master, to put it simply, Madhuvana, which you, like all your predecessors, valued so much, and which I have taken care of so carefully thus far, now lies in ruins, thanks to your own inebriated soldiers." I think I shall stop here for the day and continue from this point next week. Thank you all for being with me, and by the way, thanks for the responses. They are not only gratifying, but also telling me that the way I am narrating the story is okay with you all. That's what I really wanted to make sure about. God bless you all, and all the best. As always, I offer this narration to our beloved Bhagwan, who has made all this possible. Jai Sai Ram.